Impact segment tonight, the Talking Points memo. Bloody Chicago and racism on display. It is truly shocking that in the United States of America, you can have a situation in primarily black neighborhoods where innocent men, women, and children are being gunned down consistently by vicious drug gangs. That's been going on for years in Chicago, and little is being done about it. Here are the shocking stats out today. Homicides in Chicago up 70% so far this year from last year. Non-fatal shootings up 87%. The overwhelming majority of the victims are black. With 1,014 people shot so far this year in Chicago, the human toll is staggering.
My baby was 7 years old, 7. He had plans. He wanted to be somebody.
I buried my lastborn last year, and I got buried my firstborn this year.
He was a curious, creative child. He was our everything.
Today it's us. Tomorrow it may be you. Put down the guns.
Now let me ask you a very simple question. If that were happening in Beverly Hills or Georgetown or Park Avenue here in New York City, would the authorities not solve the problem? We all know the answer to that question. Thus, the only conclusion that we can arrive at is that racism is in play. The mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, a Democrat, governor of Illinois, Bruce Rauner, a Republican, have simply failed to protect their most vulnerable citizens. These two can bloviate all they want, but they haven't done anything effective to stop the carnage. And indeed, the situation is getting worse by the day. There is no National Guard in these neighborhoods. The Chicago police force is in disarray with charges of racism against it. And the new police chief in Chicago seems to be overwhelmed. The poor people living in the free fire zones are as threatened as anyone living in Afghanistan. Where is the National Guard? Where is a flood of police officers patrolling on foot 24/7 in these violent neighborhoods? Again, this atrocity, these murders, shouldn't be happening in the USA. It is long past time for a state of emergency to be declared in certain Chicago neighborhoods. It is also long past time for gun-wielding thugs to be punished severely, with very long prison terms. Finally, a direct message for folks trapped in bad Chicago neighborhoods. You guys have got to speak out. You have to march, you have to demonstrate, you have to protest. Don't count on Black Lives Matter or Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson or even President Obama. They haven't shown up. They don't seem to care. And that's the memo. Joining us now from Washington to react, Kirsten Powers. And you say?
Well, I think you're right that definitely we have a problem in the media, I would say in particular, where people don't take it as seriously when a young African-American child, for example, is shot versus a young white American, particularly if they're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. We seem to, it often is treated as a national crisis where we don't hear often about what's happening in these neighborhoods. I think you're right about that. I don't think it's true, though, that people don't care about this or that they aren't trying to solve the problem. It's not right to say Rahm Emanuel isn't aware of this.
Give me one thing that the mayor of Chicago, give me one thing the mayor of Chicago has done to solve the problem.
He hasn't solved the problem.
Give me one thing that he's done to try to solve the problem.
That's not the point. I mean, I don't know his specific policing.
Okay, he hasn't done
decisions.
anything. Kirsten, I know.
Okay. So is your position actually that Rahm Emanuel is racist against black people and doesn't care that this is happening in the city?
Here's my position, so I want to be quite clear. The mayor of Chicago, an ardent liberal Democrat, has not done one thing. Not one thing to stem the terror that these drug gangs are causing. Nothing. Now, you can draw the implication, whatever implication you want. But you said it. If this were in the Miracle Mile of Chicago, you know damn well the cops would be flooding the zone. It wouldn't happen. Go ahead.
I think the cops are, well, here's the other issue. As you know, FBI Director James Comey had said that he thinks that some of the rise in the violence in some cities across the country is because of the so-called Ferguson effect, that police
This has been
officers
going long before Ferguson.
Right.
Before.
But I will say that the New York Times had a statistic that did jump out at me, which was that since January of this year, police had stopped about 30, this is in Chicago, about 30,000 people. During the same period last year, they had stopped around 160,000 people. So something different is definitely happening.
Yeah, it's the stop and frisk. The Chicago police have been accused of being racist, so they say, you know what? We're not going to do anything in there. We're going to let it go. And that's what's happening. But look, let's advance the story.
You just said that like you endorse it. I hope you don't.
I don't.
It's actually not
I'm just
okay for
telling
them
you.
to
I'm
be
just
doing
telling
that.
you that this situation has been out of control for years, and the governor of Illinois has done nothing. Where's the National Guard? What are they doing? Why aren't they there, Kirsten? Why?
I don't know. They should be there.
Of course they should be there. Everybody knows they should be there.
But I also think you are oversimplifying the problem.
No,
I
I'm
think
not.
this is an
I'm
issue
telling you that
specific to
there is a
gang violence,
solution.
and it's not.
No, I'm not oversimplifying. I'm telling you there's a solution, and the solution is to put law enforcement and the Guard in the kill zones to stop the killing. Doesn't that make sense?
It makes sense to send the National Guard in. I agree, but I'm not. I just think it's not quite as simple.
Why not? The governor can order the National Guard anywhere he wants to order them.
I don't know that that's necessarily going to solve the problem.
Of course it is. The National Guard is going to be there physically to stop the drug gangs from coming out of their houses with guns and shooting little children. They'll be there to stop it. And if they want to take on the National Guard, let them.
So you want to basically occupy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Until these drug gangs can be dealt with by law enforcement. The federal government should be in there. This is so far out of control. They took over New Orleans.
I don't know why you're yelling at me.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling in general.
I don't disagree that the National Guard should be there. And I don't disagree that this is a serious issue and that it should be dealt with.
Kirsten,
what I disagreed with you about is the motivation.
The motivation is
people are being motivated
passive
by
racism.
Race.
They don't care. Look, the federal government took over the city of New Orleans Police Department because it was corrupt. They moved people in, the feds moved in. Are you telling me that President Obama, a former community activist in these very neighborhoods, doesn't know about this problem? And what has he done?
But now we're back to the same thing, and you're not suggesting that President Obama doesn't care about what happens to black people.
Well, then let the Justice Department take it over.
Okay. But this is our fundamental disagreement is just the motivation, the idea that somehow people don't care and that they would care if they were white people. I just am sorry, I don't believe that that's true.
It wouldn't happen if there were white people. It couldn't happen in Beverly Hills.
Right, but that's a class issue. I mean, it wouldn't happen in Beverly Hills because you don't have people joining gangs in Beverly Hills because they have money and they have homes and they have education. It's not the same thing.
If you don't see this as passive racism, and then I'm not even going to get into Black Lives Matter and Sharpton and Jackson, and where are these people? Nowhere, okay? While their own are being gunned down in the streets. If it were white people gunning them down, you know they'd be in there. If white people were gunning them down, they'd be in there. But it's black gangs gunning them down.
Black Lives Matter people have raised a lot of awareness about criminal issues in the country. So I don't think that's true. But again, we're just getting back to this idea that somehow it's motivated by race, that Rahm Emanuel and Barack Obama are passive racists. That's your opinion, okay?
My opinion is they don't care, and because they don't care, you can slap a passive racism issue on it. That's my opinion. Kirsten, thanks very much for taking the fight.